Because we only have an hour, so we might as well. So I say, let's start. I'll wait for that.
Okay, we are live.
Okay. All right, please stand for the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You are here.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I was like, okay, wait. Sorry.
We should go around the room so the.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So, I'm just gonna assume there's no public comment, or is there anyone online?
There's one person
Okay,
online.
we'll just make
We have one attendee.
Okay.
So we can see if you are the person online and if you would like to make any kind of public comment, you can signal me by raising your hand.
Okay, all right, so before we go into number 3, we'll just go around the room and just say our names for the owl. Christine Cowan, Board of Ed.
Lucy Petrella, Board of Ed.
Bob Moore, Board of Ed.
Sydney Leggett, Superintendent.
Kim Newbig, Director of Finance.
Jamie Romerbeck, Board of Ed. Michael Scalps, Chairman of the Board of Finance of Middlefield.
Eileen Buckeye, Chair of Board of Finance of Durham.
Phil Muzio, Vice Chair of Durham's Board of Finance.
All right, so, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda for the March 18th, 2026 Finance Committee meeting. There is
Second.
all in favor?
Right.
Right. Looking for an approval of the minutes from the November 12th, 2025 meeting.
Okay, you and I will be there.
Okay,
So I'll second it.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain because I was not there. I was in Antigua.
As well, I don't.
It was my birthday present. That's how I remember it.
Aye.
Teresa, yeah. All right, so we are gonna turn it over for the 2026-2027 budget discussion.
Okay.
Do you want to start or would you like me to start?
I'll turn it over to you. Yeah, if you guys want to start, I wasn't sure if you were gonna share any like thing on the screen or anything.
We're not, except we did put
Okay.
together a one-page summary that's in front of everybody right now. So if we'll go through the summary and then obviously we'll just start a bigger discussion and then take hopefully some good Q&A. So as an overview, we have a proposed gross increase of 4.41%, which is a proposed net increase of 4.78%. The staffing change proposals, we all recognize that staffing takes a significant portion of our budget. We have the following proposals in this year's budget. We have the following reductions: a 0.5 PE health teacher, a 0.5 administrative assistant to the athletic director. We have a 1.0 FTE of a grade 1 teacher, a 1.0 FTE of a music teacher, a 1.0 FTE of a speech language pathologist. And we also had a social worker that was funded through a grant. The grant is ending this year. So that is also a 1.0 FTE reduction in the budget. The proposed additions so far, there was only one this year, which is a full-time library media specialist, which would allow us to have a full-time library media specialist at the middle school and at the high school. I'll hand it over to Kim, if that's okay, Kim Newbig, to go through the capital expenses.
Sure. So, regional school districts in general are allowed to save 2% of their budget, up to 2% for capital improvements. This year, we opted to save 1% in order to kind of help with the budget. The board has been very committed over the past 2 years of fully funding whenever we can. And we feel that we're in a good position in terms of saving for future projects. Before I get into the list of what we picked, we will have a bonding project coming up. We just don't have any room around that. And that will be for the roofs here at Coggin and at Straw. There is just simply no way, even with fully funding 2%, you can save that much money. So we are going to have that, I would say, within the next 2 years. So is no funding in here, capital request for that. So what we have in here is a glycol replacement, that's an ongoing, that's like HVAC, oil, whatever that goes in HVAC and makes that run. We've been saving that over time. That's here and strong. We have a new this year bleacher automation system. Our bleachers are very dangerous when they take them down manually. This will be a system that'll help bring the bleachers up and down, you know, with no injuries, hopefully, and with much better ease. Athletic field reserve, there's 30,000 in there. That's for Cogachuk and Strong. We did a couple of field improvements over the past couple of years, and this is in there for future field work. Turf reserve, we did just replace the turf, and we're starting to save again for it, putting that back in the cycle. And chiller and pump reserve, those go kind of along with the roof at Strong. However, we are going to need to, we have been saving for that, let's put it that way, and that could go before the roof is even bonded out, so we're saving for that. Like the turf, we have a track reserve. We're starting to save for the track again, the 25,000. Those numbers are kind of low. We may need to up those up in future years, but it's a start. Anyways, we have a reserve. And then our unanticipated building repairs and maintenance is at 100,000, and we have done about 200 in the past because we had John Lyman and we had Brewster. We weren't investing any repairs or, you know, replacement of any significant infrastructures as long as it's working. So it was a lot of unknowns. This year we did reduce it to 100,000 because we do just have another year and a half. Obviously, if something happens, we're going to fix it. But this is just in here so we have the funds if something were to happen. So that totals 400,000. That's roughly 1% of the budget. So that's where we could have done 800,000, but as the cost savings, that reduced the budget by 1% by not doing that.
Can I just, and this is just what you're reserving, right?
Correct.
So if you're speaking tennis, that's in the current year budget as
No.
an expenditure. I know it's being talked about, but I'm just
I can
asking,
explain.
or hypothetically, anything that's being done this year, this is what's just being set aside.
So I'll start with the tennis courts. So originally, when we were looking at the budget, the other 1% was in there for $400,000 for a tennis court repair. And we would have done that next year. So that would have been something that we take out of that 2% capital. Our proposal to the board was that we hold off on that, take the $400,000 out, which was allowing us to bring the net down a little bit, because there's other fund balance that has been eliminated or depleted, I would say. And then our proposal is that we wait until we're doing, for example, maybe the roofing bond, and that we throw in $1 million repair for the tennis courts, because the $400,000 would be more of a temporary repair. It would probably, that cost of a repair would probably get us about 8 years on the tennis courts. If we're patient and if we wait a little bit and do the $1 million repair, we would do post-tension construction on the tennis courts, and that would last about 30 years. So we're going to try and hold off on that and go for the a little bit more costly but much longer return approach there.
Okay, so let me ask another question then. So when you were speaking in the original budget proposal about transferring funds currently, reserve funds type funds, as opposed to putting it back in and then having to reassign it. Is that what this is then? Is that taking care of the 450 that's kind of coming back into the budget?
No, so the money that, well, I mean, I guess you could say that, but
I mean,
the
is
money
that one
that was
half and is the
transferred
other?
over from capital projects
Yeah,
were abandoned and completed projects.
correct,
So,
but you're leaving them.
Would they have stayed here? Yeah, and could we have identified these projects to that? Absolutely. But that wouldn't have reduced our net budget. That would have only reduced our gross budget. And our net budget was a whole 1% higher, which means that's what the towns are paying. So by putting it back into the general fund, it actually reduced the net, the taxpayer funds. And then this was the gross money. So it essentially could have just been renamed these projects. But it was put back in as revenue in order to keep that down because it's taxpayer money. And so that's the taxes pay on the net. the taxpayers paying the net, so it reduced that net. Our net was higher than our gross because we had used all our fund balance, so we had nothing to offset that increase.
Some of these projects, like the unanticipated building, would be expended this year if something comes up. And the bleacher is actually gonna be built this year as well. So two of these things are gonna be this year, they're not reserves.
Kim, I'm sorry to not be up on this, but we had some talk about Strong needing masonry repairs pretty badly. Is that a done deal? Like, I can't quite remember the timeline of that.
So that's in our capital, 5-year capital. It's still a very real need. And so when we do bonding for the roofs, we may entertain that as well.
Am I was aware of the bleacher automation system. Have there been injuries? You said it was a dangerous situation, so
So,
you're doing this to avoid
yes.
injuries?
Yes.
So we're doing this to avoid injuries that have or have not happened.
So we haven't really had any reported injuries of it, but it could be very dangerous. Someone could get injured doing it, hurt a back or just, whatever. It's
Is there
just
an
makes
OSHA
it.
requirement?
I'm sorry?
Is there an
Insurance?
OSHA or some mandated requirement for this?
Well, no, we have not been told we have to do it. No,
So
no.
this is just an optional thing.
It's the best thing to do, so we don't have an injury. They're very difficult to get out. They're very heavy. So, we are also having to get our bleachers inspected.
That's different than this.
So this is to help pull them out and put them in. The inspection is to make sure they're safe.
Right, that's different than this.
It's different. Yes. Yep.
These bleachers are part of the original ones we've always had, right?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
since 1970.
Are they gonna do the inspection before the system is installed, just in case there's,
Yeah, we have to
Like
have,
an SU.
we had to have installed inspected right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're moved after every basketball game.
I'm sorry about?
They're moved after every basketball game, they're stored away and they're brought out for every game and put back.
Well, they're just pushed in and taken out.
Yeah.
They're not removed, they're just, it's the
Pushed.
maintenance guy.
They're pulled up.
Just the custodians move them in and
Yeah.
pull them out, right?
And they still will, but it would be an automated, it would be much.
Much smoother and safer.
So potentially a labor saver in the sense of maybe one person can push a button and do the job versus finding other people. I don't know.
More of a safety thing.
Yeah, mine would
Like putting in your electric garage door opener, instead of lifting it up.
Well, that's what my wife isn't doing, the bleachers.
Mine broke a long time ago.
Hey, did you want to take questions on like capital projects right now? I feel like we're kind
Do you
of,
want to go section by section, page 1, page 2? It's however you'd like to do it.
Well, I guess since we're on capital, right, if you had a question.
I do have a question. I was wondering about the problem that happened last year with the auditorium with the flooding. I think I forgot if that was fixed, if that needs a longer term fix, and if anything is being thought of, maybe not for this year, but for the auditorium, because it really needs some help.
So the answer is yes, it was solved. We did extensive digging and finding where there was behind the back parking lot, behind the students. Apparently there was, I forgot the term in
There's a
it.
culvert that was plugged up.
Clogged.
And then
And we didn't even, it's been there so long, I guess we didn't even know it was there. It was all grown over. So that's been fully cleaned out and opened up.
and there's,
Oh, is it Guire?
It's Squire Road being
In the
down.
back, yep, behind the lot there.
That's really good, Guire?
So the water ran down the
The
parking
water
lot.
was coming down the parking, yep, and then right into the auditorium.
That's where the water's coming.
So that's been resolved. In terms of the auditorium.
So the town, it's one of two culverts that Guire Road is one of two culverts that we're gonna move to fixing next. So I don't know if it's actually related to that, but the town is.
there's a,
Could have been a component.
it comes out of the far right corner. There's a stream that comes out through there. and that comes
Yeah,
off the-
it sounds like it could be related.
And that
which is very
and then
interesting.
it goes into a culvert that had been clogged up. And then there's also another stream that comes down. And if you go back there, there's a big green fence that comes down through there and it's diverted. And both of those were flooded over and flooded the parking lot and came in through the door, the low door on the side of the auditorium. And then that culvert that's far over there, that was then cleaned out, the pipe was cleaned out and the catch basin was replaced. And that goes then, some of it goes under the track and some comes around and goes along the track, but most of it now has been replaced and televised and fixed. So and we also have repaved and graded. You go back behind where you go in for the field, it's all been regraded and paved. So, and graded so that it doesn't flow into the cafeteria, into the auditorium anymore.
And I guess a real test of that was all the snow melting lately, and we didn't get it.
Right. There's a little more information about the auditorium though, because we are doing an ADA study that we're actually just in the process of, because when all this happened, I think, was that when the ADA was noticed or was it other times?
It's been on the
On the radar.
that we need to make some ADA updates in the auditorium, so.
Well,
Especially the steep grade going
Yeah.
down and yeah.
I think the auditorium needs a lot more than that. I've been to a lot of high schools in our area, including Meriden and Madison, Guilford, and that AV system, the sound system in there is so old that even the students that are working on it, it is so antiquated. I can't even imagine what year that goes back to.
Probably 30 years.
But not to mention the chairs in there, the seats, whatever they're called, very distracting when there's events in there. I mean, it is it's not good. And, you know, I have been saying that for, I don't know how long I've been saying this. So,
I think one of the hard parts is that since we're a regional school district, we have the cap at 2%. So it's so hard for Kim and the team to budget for like every capital project. Like we're never gonna.
believe me, I'm not advocating for. Yeah, I'm
Well,
not
I'm just saying,
advocating
like,
for to make our budgets worse. You know, I have him here to do that, but I think it needs to be put on a list as something to study,
Well, I just
something to
think
fit
that-
in. It could, because, and then, you know, I do know the turf and the track were just done and you're already saving for, you know, your future needs. And that's only a piece of what I think this district needs to look at and I think it's a piece of keeping kids staying in districts so we don't, you know, lose the kids. We don't have to pay for out of district. So I think to just keep these things in mind is a piece of a healthy, you know, educational system here in Region 13. And historically, I can say that now because I've been here so long. The music system, program I think I would say was stellar and something that was extraordinary about our district. So I do think that needs to, you know, again, we're back to the turf and the track. I would love to see at least something being put in for that.
We do have a list. So I've talked to some of you about this already, but we're in the process of having a strategic plan created. Part of that strategic plan is going to be a capital improvement plan. It is definitely on the list. It's been something that we talk about, the entire auditorium, the music system. It's definitely on the radar. And we're just trying to make sure that it's carefully planned out and timed well. And I agree with you.
I love planning.
Yeah.
And I love planning for 5-10 years out.
Well, I think would be important though, that, you know, when a capital plan is identified, we really have like everything on there, it's all updated. Because we are capped at the 2%, I do think there could be maybe some creativity with both the towns of kind of maybe having a piece of capital reserve, like for the schools, you know, because to me, it's like tomato, like, you know, where it's like coming from. So like, I know how much that gentleman next to you loves to bond. But, if there's a way to, avoid that and start saving and really kind of come up with a very strategic way to do it, if there's could be like a percent, from each town too, in your reserves down the road.
Yeah, I
Down-
don't know,
like
I
some
don't,
talk
yeah.
about it, but it just makes it very difficult. It's 2%.
I understand,
We're gonna be
I understand, and,
But I agree what you were saying of like, I could see how even like perception wise of like, hey, the track was just done. We've never really done a whole lot
and
more touring.
I know what reserve, I understand the concept of reserve, and I understand, I get that you're not, we're trying to be smart, and we're trying to think ahead, and we're trying to put this away so that it's not a shock, but for those of you who haven't spent a lot of time in there, or are unfamiliar with the music program or in general, I would be happy to show you around. It's really not great. And I'm glad that problem was resolved, but that to me was was really, really sort of like a symbolic of the problem is, wow, like now we're having the show that is the most important thing that the high schoolers do all year, and it was canceled. And I'm not laying fault. Makes it sound like I think someone didn't do like some sort of clean out there. That's not what I mean. But I would love to plan ahead. Like planning's awesome. So if we could do that, that would be great.
We're on it.
The good news is we will have 2 buildings we won't have to do capital improvements on in the future.
Exactly,
Perhaps we'll
yeah.
buy a little bit of time with the renovate as new, but as soon as that renovate as new project is going, we need to budget for the needs 10 years down the road as well. But there could be opportunities for that. And I totally agree with trying to keep kids in district. It's not an easy thing. The pie is divided up so small. You can go multiple different places. And yeah, if we can keep in district, I don't know that it's always just about the aesthetics of it, but it sure doesn't hurt. I do know people choose colleges, not just on the programming, but the aesthetics. Yeah, I see it all the time.
Yeah, the sound system is definitely not just aesthetics. So that
Yeah,
is.
I would say the auditorium needs are not solely aesthetic. I would agree, like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
chairs.
The music
ADA
program is
pieces,
precious
down.
because, many of us here serve on the student achievement committee as well. And when you have students involved with music, it's been proven that they really excel in the academic side as well and influence other students.
I
for the
think
better.
a lot of the top graduating students this year are, if you check on it, they're all in the music program. So
Most every year.
pretty much every year, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just something to think about.
Well, there's also grants. I mean, we've got grants for other facilities, so I think, our legislators have been very kind to us. And perhaps, that they can start working inside instead of outside would be great.
Yeah, so I didn't want to take us on too far out when we have the other side to go over.
Was there anything else from the first side? Do you have any questions about staffing?
I was gonna say, do you want to talk about staffing for a minute?
Yeah, I just thought to get some background as to what drives the reductions or adding,
Yeah.
I have a naive view of what would probably do it. I'd rather hear from you what drives it.
So we start with zero-based budgeting every year. I'm a big believer in that. So we look every year to see the staff that we actually need to keep our programming going. So it almost always just comes down to a combination of enrollment and programming. So we do have declining enrollment in the district. So you can see some of those reflected mostly in the grade 1 position and in the music and PE position. Where like with the PE health position, there's a way that we can share a position between the middle and the high school, which is what we're going to be doing, which allows us to reduce 0.5. And then grade 1 is strictly driven by declining enrollment. We can go from 6 to 5 teachers in that grade level. And then if we look at music, we have 7 full FTE, 7 full-time positions, equivalent positions for music, which is really heavy for a district of 1,300. And so that's where we would say we believe that we can reduce one without having a negative effect on programming. We still believe we can offer a strong music program by reducing one because of our numbers and because of the way that we can allocate the other 6 people. A position such as the speech language pathologist would be driven solely by student, into IEP, student needs. How many hours are in that we need for service hours and what schools are they in and how many people we need there. And then the social worker, nobody really wants to lose a social worker, especially with kids' mental health needs. They are increased. However, coming into the district, something that's grant funded, you don't want the cliff effect where something automatically just gets thrown into the budget just because a grant is ending. So we recommended a reduction there, although I may talk to the board about if we have had a strong desire from the community to not lose that position. There may be a way that I'll talk to the board at our next work session about maybe bringing that partially back. But again, the cliff effect of getting a grant and then having the position long-term is something that we want to avoid.
Is that something that you can work with, DMYFS?
So we talked a little bit about that. Christine brought up the idea of school-based clinicians, which we have, but that's very different in what they're able to do as opposed to having somebody who's a certified school employee and how we can use them to teach how they work with all students. It's not something that's just families and it runs through their insurance. There's a lot of benefits to having somebody who's an actual position as opposed to contracting out.
So with,
Are there others in that position, or is this the only one that we have?
No, we have them in all schools, so we have them at all levels.
So which one is now losing?
If we lose the position, we would have to reallocate so that we could spread it differently across K through 12. We would probably have to share positions across schools, which we do now, but the one currently is grant funded at Lyman in grades 2 through 4.
I have to say, coming in from the financial perspective and working with a lot of not-for-profits, I compliment you on assuring that you're matching the grants with the individuals, because with all the ARPA funding, a lot of my clients right now are struggling because they utilize the ARPA funding for raises as well as staffing increases. And it's not only ARPA, it's like every grant.
Rejected that as a district
And
with a team effort and, yeah, didn't want that to become a perennial part of the
just,
budget.
it really, they were supposed to be used for kind of new initiatives, and it really has spiraled now that it's becoming an issue, so.
Yep. And, even at middle and high school, we look at, the enrollments versus programming. So we do have and we have declining enrollment and we will have some smaller classes, but we always look at how would a reduction in a teacher in that content area, for example, in high school, affect the programming. So talking about trying to keep kids in districts, in a smaller school or a smaller district like this, we run into situations where if we just by the numbers reduced a position, maybe on paper it looks good, but it might mean that we lose things like AP chemistry and AP calculus or economics or some of our college classes that I know the community doesn't want to get rid of.
Could we
So
send
we're
a-
always balancing those things. I hope that answers your
and
question.
just one follow-up. So do you do the zero-based requirement study every year?
Yes.
You do.
Could we send a copy or like a copy of the presentation that we saw last week about the social studies department to the finance committee? I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
That was helpful to me to kind of see how
How the programming is. affected.
how moving around positions affects
Yeah.
kind of the whole department and the offerings and stuff.
We did what it would look like status quo and what we can offer. And then we did a hypothetical 1.0 reduction in the social studies department and what courses would be eliminated.
That's different than the social worker though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was just kind of an exercise.
Because I
to
looked at
see
that,
how-
I'm like, wait,
high
this is
school.
the social work, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Position, okay.
How many FTEs are there currently?
Total in the district?
Correct, yes.
I'm gonna have to hand that over to Kim unless I can.
Certified, it's in.
Even a ballpark number, so
168 certified, I think.
168.
And that's.
I can get the number.
And then while you're digging that up, so my question is, I see the reductions. Looks like we have 5 staff or 4 staff that we pay for that are being reduced and 1 that are being added. So that's a net of 3 that's being reduced. And I hear you say we're going from 2% of capital to 1% of capital. So those are both negative, but the gross and the net are both positive. What drives that increase?
Yes.
Because I was, I want to say this before you leave, but let me answer your staffing. We have
Yep.
160.9 certified. And non-certified, we have, 111.5. So we have a total of 284.4.
Thank you.
I was looking at the last 10 years, we're down, this year will bring us down almost 30 positions. 2015.
Do you ever compare? You can answer his other
Yeah,
question.
so I want to break down that 4.41 because it's a great question, like, well, why? Okay, so years past, we've budgeted our salaries with a vacancy factor. 96%, we went to 96.5, we went to 98. Worked in some years, but what that effectually did was reduced our fund balance to nothing because you're building in a deficit that way, right? You know you're gonna go over. So you draw on your reserves. So we chose not to do that this year. It doesn't work. We've been over. If you look at our audit last year, you'll see how far our salaries were over.
I'm interested in that though, Kim, because in past years, you're saying that past couple of years, I just remember back, it was always a budget increase, and that's why we built that in. So I'm trying to figure out what changed in the individuals, because what is, the vacancy factor is supposed to be that an individual leaves at a higher salary. And that,
Absences, we had a lot of positions that we weren't able to fill, a lot of turnover, so we were seeing like these kind of big surpluses in our salaries. So in order to offset that, we've budgeted at the vacancy factor. We haven't had that kind of experience, so we haven't had people leaving big positions that are high-paying positions that are open for, 6 months or a year. We had a lot of turnover in different support staff positions and that weren't filled right away. So that was a whole bunch of, or being teachers out on leave, that was a whole bunch of savings. We hadn't had that experience over the past couple of years. So our salaries were going over. And then the fund balance was absorbing that deficit. So we're not as in bad of a shape this year. We're in now 25, 26 in terms of running our salaries over. Because we did start to see some position overchange and, we're not as in bad shape of running it that far over. But it's not a viable strategy anymore to budget at a vacancy factor because when you run it over, it just takes up your reserves. And then the net is higher than the gross because the towns have to pay more because there's nothing to balance the next year's budget, which is what the reserve does. The reserve is not there for us to use however we see fit, pull it into the budget. It's always earmarked to balance the next year's budget. Can't do anything else with it. So that helps offset the net increase to the towns. So when you don't have that, your net increase is higher than so your net increase, the expenses didn't go up 4.78, they went up 4.41, but you're paying on a 4.78 because you didn't have anything to balance that in reserves. I hope I answered that. So
I'm okay with that. I was talking about the vacancy.
So,
factor, 'cause
yeah,
that's
I mean,
kinda-
it's just.
I was just curious when I was reading that
Yeah.
or listening to it when you guys were in your meetings.
We-
Because it was always just something that worked. It was a concept that I never really understood
Yeah,
until I started, within a district or having kids. And because I've never seen it in normal business, but
well, we had
I
healthier fund balance when I first started. And it was a conscious decision by the board to do that vacancy factor to kind of get those funds back to the taxpayers instead of just being in that 2 years out to balance the budget. So we knew it was gonna run over.
Yeah, when I was at the MDC in Hartford, I always would budget about a 98 to 99% on the salaries, because we always had enough turnover that we never filled all the positions, so we didn't want to carry over extra money, so we always had we funded at 98% most of the time of our salaries. But we also could eliminate people easier if we had to. So,
What were you funding last year?
98.
98.
Mhm.
And you went to 100%.
And if you look at our audit that we just presented, 24, I think we're $600,000 over in salaries. And those are not any new positions. That's not anything. That was just budgeted salary passed, but we didn't fund it at 100%.
So the vacancy factor represents an increase of what out of our
1.2.
1.2%.
Contractual obligations are 1.15. So every year the collective bargaining unions, they get an increase. That increase, we did just negotiate the teachers. We have a few more coming up this year, but also there's lane changes. So someone there's step movement, right? So each year they're here longer, they get paid not only the GWI, but also a step movement. And then the lane changes could be if somebody got a master's degree or their 6th year, then they move over to the next lane. So it's not just a GWI, there's a lot of factors that go into it. And that's both certified and non-certified staff members. Health insurance is 0.38%.
Before we move, I have a question about salaries. So I'm looking at page 95 and 96 of your budget proposal. And on page 96, you indicate you have the upper item in the lower box, 92.5 regular teachers in this coming year's budget.
Yes, regular education.
Right. And now looking at page 95, in grades 1 through 5, you have 32 teachers,
Okay.
and in strong, you have, I guess, 15, if I do the divisions, and I added 10 more because of the specialties that teachers teach. So I would assume there's probably 25 teachers in strong. Good guess.
Could be, yeah.
So teachers in pre-K through 8, if I sum those two numbers, would be 57.
Okay.
And you had 92 teachers in total, so roughly 37 teachers at the high school. And if I take the enrollment in page 95, Cognachaga Regional High School enrollment, that was 347. If I take that enrollment and divide it by the 37 teachers, that means that our class size is roughly 9.4.
No, I don't,
That's-
that math, that's not how. we
Yeah,
do
that's,
it.
that's maybe I think we would have to check the numbers and we can look that for
No,
that
he's
for you, but
actually
it's,
not that far off.
it's not a straight division.
No.
It's because, and it actually is because of some of the things that we talked about earlier, is that we do have some small class sizes to be able to continue offering
Right.
some
Yeah.
things.
And so Christine, you and I are.
Yeah, no. You and I are in line with this because this is something I do feel strongly about. So I did it a little bit of a different way.
Okay.
I backed into it by the classes we have.
I don't
And
have
the
that
sti-
data.
yeah. So then I did it that way and basically I took out all the study halls, all like any special education required classes. And we have 88 classes that have less than 10 kids in them and 192 classes have less than 15 kids in them.
Right.
So they are very small, but to Sydney's point, you do start getting into like the, I think one was like AP literature,
chemistry.
or something like that.
So I
Yeah.
went to
So
a
you have
very
this.
good high school,
Mhm.
that offered a full range of classes. Went to Amity. Great school. I don't ever remember, even in the higher math classes, I was never in any art classes.
Well, that's
obviously.
unfortunate.
But even in the higher math classes, I never remember class
Yeah,
sizes.
you went to high school 100 years ago.
40, oh, 60.
But the high schools now don't, that's not how it works. These kids have to take AP classes and things like that, that I didn't even have to do when I was, I'm joking with you, but,
I know
but I didn't even have to do that when I was in high school, and it's not like that anymore.
I think it's finding a balance of both of what you're saying. And that's kind of what I've been saying for the past couple of weeks is like, to me, it's like a fine dance, it's like, how do you remain competitive so that kids stop, going to other choices, and that's kind of what Jamie was saying before, like, there's just so many different pieces, like, there's so many places kids can go to explore and get a good education. How do we keep them here and remain competitive, get them into good colleges by having these offerings, but also not have kind of this, little bit of a, maybe like crazy, like, staff to like student ratio. It's like a blend, and I think that needs to continue to be evaluated.
Well, I do have a child that did go to another school, and they are more robust. They do offer more AP classes. It's real. And I have a lot of parents, friends that send their kids out of district, and they have very robust AP, very competitive. It's not made up. It actually is real.
But this is where the money is. In staffing.
To me, the
Yeah.
tug of war that we're facing here at the high school is we have a large contingent of students that really are high achievers and they want those AP classes, and rightfully so. You can't deprive a kid of education, that's a law. At the same time, there's also a large contingent of kids who are saying, I don't want to go to college. They're seeing these high debts. And we also have to embrace career pathways as well. That's a whole new animal that we're seeing. So that's really a tug of war right now. I mean, I'm from a trade school. We have a very, very focused, directed thing. We can do a lot of things directed towards our program, not offering a million things as we do, but it's just a different scenario. I can't compare the two. I do know that I exist in a world as if I don't attract enough students, my job is gone. That's the world I live in. So I need to have 18 students. I currently have 25, thankfully, in my 9th grade class. So I'm good.
And we also, like what I said with zero-based budgeting, we looked at every single department in the high school and looked at what could be reduced and what would it be affected, how would it affect programming. So again, if you're going straight by numbers, it looks like you could reduce. We did not find an area, except we did have a discussion about an English teacher, but we didn't find any other area where we could reduce without having a significant effect on the programming that we offer.
So
But I
as
think
you,
where
as
you're
you
going
come,
with this, Chuck, is really what's important is what's coming in the next couple of years with the school consolidations. I
that's
think
gonna be good. I don't disagree.
Right, that's where I thought you were going was it's not, I don't know if it's the teacher salaries as much as it's the administrative,
That too, but I didn't have the numbers to deal with.
I mean,
that.
we only have like 15 minutes, but in my opinion, that's a really important discussion to have. If we're planning out 5 years, that's gonna factor into that. That's how I see it. I don't know if that's correct or not.
I'm not sure.
So, I mean, with the closure of the 2 elementary schools and the consolidation in Memorial, isn't that where we're going to see savings in salaries and overhead? I guess that's my question.
Overhead, definitely. Salaries, it's gonna depend because you're still, if you look at the fact that you have 2 schools, like we were just talking about this with the library media specialist position, right? We have one at Brewster and one at Lyman. That doesn't mean we can go to one at Memorial because you're still serving a school of almost 700 kids. So to be able to offer library classes, which we do, and Hillbrook Library, we're probably going to have to keep 2 library media specialists there. But there will be other areas that can be reduced when we consolidate. It just, like, we don't want people to get the impression that we can just split everything in half when we go in there because we're
And
still
which
serving the
fiscal-
same
which-
student
Which
population.
fiscal year would that be?
27, 28.
27, 28.
So when we
This year is particularly difficult because we're housing kids in temporary,
Yeah.
all that is a cost and it's not going
Right.
away right away.
when we
So
closed,
people are under the presumption that, wow, we're a 3-school district now. No, we're not at the moment.
when we closed Corn, Kim, you maybe remember or have the numbers?
Right before me, but.
I think we saved nurse and an assistant principal. That was about it.
Yeah, well, that's likely.
And maybe a clerk.
You might be able to consolidate related arts. So the art teacher, music teacher can have bigger class sizes, right? But you're not gonna, classroom regular ed teachers, still class sizes are class sizes.
Well, what
right?
you may have is merging them together. You won't have the 1st grade at Lyman that has 10, and then
Correct.
if you
Correct.
merge it, it's gonna bring it over 20. You may have some savings there.
Absolutely.
But it's just not a straight division.
Mhm.
I actually had the class sizes on my list as well, but my point is, I'm curious if, from an educational standpoint in the state of Connecticut, because I didn't realize this till last year, you cannot have
That's how they do it.
classes with other consortiums. You can't have a consortium of 3 schools that offer online or remote classes on, say, AP chemistry.
Yeah, we're not allowed to do online.
You're not allowed
We
to,
are.
so I'm wondering if that could be a proactive legislative
Yeah.
mode. Because that definitely is where I see savings, and on private schools now that can do that. They basically can, I mean, they basically can be online in a class, in a media room, which is what they're now building, is the media rooms. And, you know, 5 kids from Coggins here are on with 5 other schools, and it could be across the country, and they're learning remotely from a teacher that's teaching them, and they're having all their breakout rooms and everything else. It's just utilizing technology the way it's used today in the business world.
I agree, and I think we should look at other ways to share regionally, you know, other programs, other pathways that you're talking about, like, could we bring kids in for our fire science program? Could we send kids out to, you know, to do an auto program? I think we should look into all of that. The one issue that people need to remember is that, so if we have that class that's set up where people are doing AP chemistry with, you know, 17 or something like that, we still have to have an adult, we still have to have an adult supervisor. So it doesn't completely eliminate staffing, because we still have to have somebody supervising those students.
Would that be a certified person?
Not necessarily.
Well, it's not a state, it's a state law that's preventing it right now. I don't know what the state law is, and you know, it certainly is not my area of expertise, but it's definitely in a non-public educational environment, you can do it. You know, no different than, you know, you don't have to have snow days anymore because you can teach over technology. So it's a way of the future that the public schools have to blend in, and it's gonna be eye-opening, because you can really, kids are gonna be able to take a variety of courses and somehow messing in homeschooling with it, so that homeschool parent can kind of come in and be the, you know, the advisor, and that is, you know, the thought process there. So, I mean, it's, once again, I'm certainly not talking from an expertise level here, I'm talking from creativity.
If I can, I don't know if we're ready to move on, but I'd like to finish the answer for you.
Health insurance.
So yes, health insurance is a 0.38%. Originally, we were budgeting at a 14% increase, state partnership plan. We have very high claims. Our loss ratio is 130%. So even though we did go off RFP this year, and we have in the past, we get a lot of decline to quotes. Or we get a 24%.
So we were expecting 14 and we ended up at
11.5.
Sorry, we were expecting 11.5.
No.
Sorry,
So-
I thought I heard you say 0.38.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is the piece of the budget that is of the 4.41 that's allocated for the increase of the health insurance. So 0.38% of the budget represents how much our health insurance went up. Our health insurance renewal rate from the state partnership plan is at 11.5%. So that 11.5 equals the 0.38 of the total budget.
So what Kim's doing is she's taking the 4.41% increase and telling you what made that. So 0.38% of that is the four.
And
Okay,
where
I
we
got
went
you.
with the
Thank you.
14 was we originally budgeted at
Got
14, and then it did come down. Debt service, that's another, a big one, that's a 1.44. That is not new debt. That is our existing debt that we were able to pay for out of bond proceeds. So when we did bonding, we had proceeds on the bond, premium, and we just paid it out of capital reserve past 2 years. And so it's coming back in this year. So it looks like, I mean, it is a 1.44, but it is not new debt. It's just because we were at 0 last year, and you'll see that we budgeted 0 debt service in the general fund last year. So it's important to note that those things combined, those are all the things that we, you know, really can't make much headway in. That's 4.17% of the 441. The last combined, the 0.3% to make the 441. Actually, my math is wrong. That's a little wrong. That's for operating services, supplies, capital dues and fees, and facilities and grounds. We had reduction in facilities and grounds. We saw a reduction in supplies, a reduction in capital, and a reduction in dues and fees. So that's how we get to the 441. The 478 is our gross budget minus our revenue, it's called, but minus any kind of income that a regional school district will get, such as the rental of our auditorium or our athletic fields, that's revenue. Interest income, in-house tuition, so our preschool tuition. We have parking lot fees, parking fees for the students, all those kind of things. We have co-op fees for a football team. That's all revenue. And then to that is the fund balance that you've had carried over, you know, if you had any surpluses. We didn't have that. That's why we carried over that 450. And even that is $319,000 less than we had for last year. So that's why your net is going to be higher than your gross. It's because you just don't have the same funding reserves that you had the year before. Excess cost grant never pays 100%. We've been trying to budget it like 75, 80%, when in reality it's coming in at like 60. So I budgeted a 60 this year because you don't want to budget your revenue too much and not get it.
Should probably go to the back page before we run out of time.
Yeah.
The numbers in the budget book are before the reduction in
Correct.
health insurance.
Can I just ask one on the staffing? Somebody had asked the question in one of the meetings about the grade 1 teacher. Are the class sizes the same as they've always had? We've never changed the directive and we've never. So in doing this, eliminating is really just a pure mathematical equation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I then
I
those
think I brought
sizes
that up
are in the
last
budget.
meeting.
You do.
Yeah. It stays the same.
Yeah, we haven't changed it.
So that's on page 94 too in the budget.
Right, but I just, yeah, all right. So, and then the only other, it's more of a comment because of the media specialist and kind of talking a lot about that. So, and I guess I'm struggling just because I mean, I know we used a library just like this, but my kids who aren't that old, I don't ever remember them in high school needing a media specialist. Like I can't ever remember them if I asked them if you ever walked into a library in high school. I just don't know what the role is in the high school area. I understand when they're younger and learning how to use tools and how to use different things. But once they're in high school, they're fairly independent. So I kind of, that's I think where I was struggling with the necessity. And then you look at the room and you kind of see, that they're not using the book. So
And I was a high school teacher also, and in my experience in schools, a really strong library media specialist at the middle and high school level can be a game changer for instruction for all of your classes. Because kids are learning how to do research, and the library media specialist is going into classes, helping to have more rigor, more depth in curriculum because of the research component, the inquiry component. There's so much with data and media literacy right now. AI is bringing a whole new element into how everybody learns, and the library media specialist can really take charge of all of that and can really raise the whole level of instruction. With this addition, it can also be a big game changer for the middle school level because that's where kids are learning executive functions. Right now, we don't have a regular rotation in library media science in the middle school level because we share this person. If we could put a regular rotation in there, the same that we do with art and music, we could start doing executive function, data literacy, research, writing, all of that could be a part of those classes that would affect all other learning. So it's the one addition that's proposed this year. In my opinion, it would be a major positive leverage for instruction in every content area.
all right, so all I'm going to say from a public standpoint, being that I'm on here to kind of help sell the budget or help critique the budget, I would.
The former, it's sell it.
Just kidding. I didn't want that to go in the minutes, but I know it's gonna splash out.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure it's in there now. We're definitely gonna say.
It really has to be somehow explained, because I am sure you're gonna probably have parents out there that are better educated or are okay with it. If you're looking at the individual citizens that are walking up to the voting box, they're not gonna understand it like that, so.
Well, it wasn't that just recently removed, not that long ago, right? So there was,
It was proposed to be removed, but wasn't.
okay. I think there was actually backlash the other direction last year. That came to some of those meetings and it was an outcry about its possible removal. That's what I saw.
They wanted, yeah, it was gonna be removed last year, but now it's an additional person.
I mean, I think you.
Oh, it's additional person on top of that.
Yes.
Okay,
So you'd have
I
a
didn't get that.
librarian here who's actually a certified teacher, now a library media specialist, which is a different, well, they would be the same. Different certification.
Yeah.
I have an 062,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
All right.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah, so we.
But there's
had
two
two
different levels of that as
people-
well, like a master's level.
Right, yeah, you have two people here in the library for the high school.
I think.
No, you would have one person in this library and one person in the middle school library. Right now,
Oh,
we
yeah,
share a
split,
person
she split,
between
yeah, she's split between
middle
the
and
two
high
high
school.
schools.
So right now we have 0.5 at the middle school and 0.5 here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
So
I
this
got
would
it.
make it one at the middle school
Okay.
and one at the high school.
Yeah, but you're adding an FTE
Okay,
to.
And it would have a positive effect, again, in my professional opinion, on both schools. Maybe in different ways, but definitely in all instruction areas in both schools.
There was a
I
good,
think also if you look at the changes that occurred in our library in town, I mean, they're not just giving out books. I mean, it's become a different kind of a program, having a library that's functional.
in our last meeting, Ms. Lucier came in and spoke at length about the benefits of the specialist, if you want to go back and what this is.
Yeah, if that position goes through too, I also ask that we gather data as far as what's the result of this, what measurable goals we have, and you had a plan for that as well. So,
We gave the board a full proposal and then we followed up with a more detailed plan, and I'm happy to share that with you also.
You wanna look at your part, that's the last page.
The last page is the projected cost to towns, and you see this every year, just take the net budget. You'll remember that we switched to the 5-year average, method last year. So that is applying the same 5-year average method. Durham is 65.38, down from 65.57. Middlefield is 34.62, up from 34.43 last year. And then the governor's proposed ECS grant, there are changes in his budget proposal. However, Durham and Middlefield are not affected either way. Except for, we did have a small reduction last year, but we're back up to where we were supposed to be. So that's at the 3.2 million and the 2.1 million. And then that brings the cost to towns 26, 27, 24 million for Durham and 12 million for Middlefield. And offset it from what the cost was last year. Durham seeing an increase of 1,183,861 and Middlefield 752,683. There is discussion about potentially increasing the ECS amounts. We're hopeful, but without having any solid data or anything, it's too premature to put anything in to this. But if it were to come to fruition, much of this increase will probably be absorbed by that ECS increase. If what they're
happens.
so
saying.
the new proposal is 100 to 150, that a million out of reserve. I don't know if you saw that just happen.
Yesterday.
Yeah, a couple of days
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, and wasn't that also for school lunches too, I think, for free lunch?
No, the school lunches was the
Sugar.
soda tax.
Yeah.
But the ECS it's we sent in the letter of support, it was Senate Bill 7. So I think that we collectively need to support the concept of that for next fiscal year. So they're gonna probably punt to next fiscal year. So it's something that we should watch for. This is a non-budget year, so we need to watch it for the budget year.
Well, it's 6 o'clock and I know we have another 6 p.m. meeting.
Can I ask one of them? And this is more for the future. And it's just, I know we always compare our budget and then note that it's a lot higher than the normal cost per student is higher because we're regionalized. Can we compare to other regional? I mean, maybe that would be a better way. And then secondly, can we compare positions and FTEs and stuff? It's like size. Places like, forget about cost, because FTE is more educationally driven. So if you have a student body of 1,300 students that runs, you know, pre-K to through high school, what's the normal composition? And how does that get distributed?
We'll have the same issue that we had with high school because high school programming is so different, but that you can, it's pretty easy to do the comparison pre-K 8. But when you get into high school, you're looking at.
We can learn, I'm not saying that's gonna happen this year, but we could learn from it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just saying that it'll be, it's never an apples to apples.
And I never really completely understood the block scheduling, so, you know, maybe.
So
maybe-
interested to expand on that answer. On page 98 is where I do the per pupil expenditure chart. And we do compare it to other regional districts. And we are, yes, we're a little bit higher. We're about $900 and something a student higher. But with the consolidation of Memorial, we expect to be right in line with other regional school districts. So regionals are just higher by nature because of the expenditures. They have that local boards of ed still have. That the towns budget for.
Plus we have to have we have capital expenses that other, you know, we don't, other towns don't have, you know, the individual towns are not included in their budget. There's lots of other reasons that regionals are higher. Like we have to fix this road.
All right, well, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Thank you.
If anybody wants to follow up with me, I
For a
can.
second, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, please email me if you have any questions, because I'd rather you have the right information and you didn't get to ask
Thank
a
you.
question, please.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah, thanks. Nice to see you, sir.
Christine. Motion to adjourn in second.
I do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks for-